It's time to predict some awards. The NFL awards races are always interesting, particularly the MVPs. And while they may be more narrative driven than production and stats driven, it's still interesting to talk about. So we're going to start things off with the Rookie of the Year awards. And for me, the Offensive Rookie of the Year is pretty simple. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback. It certainly is not going to be a running back. And I have very little faith in Malik Nabers to do anything with Daniel Jones as his quarterback or Rome Odunze to do anything while being the wide receiver 3 in a Chicago offense, which leaves me with Marvin Harrison Jr. And by process of elimination, he's my pick, but he really is a special talent. In the past 3 years as a Michigan fan, the only player on Ohio State I was consistently worried about was Marvin Harrison Jr. CJ Stroud did not worry me nearly as much as him. He is an athletic freak. 6'4", 210, plays like he's 230 when making moves, speed of a 190-pound player, 4'4", 40 if we're being conservative, probably somewhere in the 4.3s. Insane vertical, best hands in the draft, phenomenal route runner, got the lineage, he's NFL royalty already, and he hasn't even played a snap. The Cardinals' offense is also missing a lot of its targets. They lost Hollywood Brown. Their receiving room is a mess outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., and the only one really taking touches away from him is going to be Trey McBride. With Kyler healthy, they are going to pass the ball a lot more than they did last year. Marvin Harrison's going to go for at least 1,300 yards. I could see him cracking double-digit touchdowns. And since it's going to be a weaker quarterback year, in my opinion, in terms of the rookie production, not saying in general in terms of the talent, I think he's going to win the award.
Well, as you mentioned about the awards in general, for every single one we're going to talk about, a lot of these awards are narrative-driven. And I don't think the narrative gets any bigger than how much Caleb Williams is talked about, the wow plays he's going to make week in and week out, the production he's going to have on the stat sheet, and I don't think anyone's going to truly rival that. From what we've seen in the preseason, from him being the number 1 overall pick, playing in Chicago where they haven't had a good quarterback pretty much in the entire franchise's history, this is his award to lose. His season is somewhat of a failure if he does not win this award. He has all of the talent to get it done on offense. He has the receivers. He has a running back. He has a very good defense as far as getting the win total up there. And I think statistically he's going to finish around 4,000 yards passing, maybe 5 more touchdowns than CJ Stroud had last year, around 28. I think the interceptions are certainly going to be higher than Stroud's. It's harder to get towards that 4 interception number. And in a direct comparison to Marvin Harrison, I think Marvin Harrison can be very good. I don't think he's going to quite have a Justin Jefferson type rookie year, but I don't think he's going to have as much of the narrative there. And when it comes to people I think could maybe eclipse Caleb Williams when it comes to narrative along with the stats needed to win this award, I think there are 2 other guys. I think there's Malik Nabers with how bad Daniel Jones has been in the preseason, how much negative press he is getting, how bad I think a majority of people think he will be. And in lieu of that, if Malik Nabers is able to put up a Justin Jefferson-like year, where he has 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 100-plus catches, that's a narrative I could see where elevates the Giants to 8 wins.
If Troy Franklin puts up 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, he's going to win the award too. It's not going to happen. Like, we are getting so deep into the hypotheticals on this
No,
one.
that is not deep into the hypotheticals.
That's deep into the hypotheticals.
If Troy Franklin has those stats, that means Bo Nix also had a very good year.
I'm talking about Malik Nabers. Like, Malik Nabers is not putting up 1,400 yards. Like, let's be serious here for a second. Come on now.
I'm talking about who I think can beat Caleb Williams from a narrative perspective, assuming they have stats to be in the argument with what I think Caleb Williams is going to do. I don't think Bo Nix is going to have the weapons to get that done. Jaden Daniels, I don't think he's going to have the same narrative built around Caleb Williams, and I don't think he's going to have as good of stats as Caleb Williams will in year 1. And Malik Nabers, from a narrative standpoint, if he gets that crazy rookie Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson rookie production, I could see him maybe getting more first place votes than Caleb Williams. And another guy who not as many people have talked about a ton because it looks like he may start the season injured or he'll definitely have limited reps is Jonathan Brooks, because the Panthers had 2 wins last season, looked horrible on offense, and if he comes in, cranking out 100 rushing yards every single game, scoring touchdowns week in and week out, and elevating that Panthers offense like we saw Christian McCaffrey do, I could also see him challenging Caleb Williams for the award, but ultimately I think it's Caleb's to lose.
A lot you said there was very dumb and hurt my brain. Let's start off with the last thing. Chuba Hubbard was a good running back last year. He had 900 rushing yards. Like, he is going to eat into his production. And Miles Sanders is still on the roster. Like, no running back is going to have the production on that Panthers team to win any award. Let's start right there. Second off, you said narrative about 15 times. The narrative is exactly why Caleb Williams is not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. You and everyone else have set the bar way too high. I think Caleb Williams is tremendously talented. I just don't think he is as NFL ready as everyone else does. He's not going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's got the talent around him to do it. Still plays in Chicago, outdoors, in environments it is really hard to air the ball out in. He's got fumbling issues. He holds onto the ball too long. We saw that in college against Notre Dame and any team which can dial up a pass rush. He does not do amazing under pressure. He's in a great situation, don't get me wrong, but saying, oh, well, he's got to throw for 4,000 yards, 25, 30 touchdowns, that's setting the bar way too high for a rookie quarterback who still needs to develop. When he throws for 3,500 yards, 3,700 yards, and 20-some touchdowns, has a bunch of turnovers due to fumbles and interceptions, that's still a good rookie season, but because people like you have poisoned the well so much, saying he is the next Patrick Mahomes, going to throw for an insane amount of yards.
Next Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, whatever, buddy. You know that people are saying that. You've poisoned the well so much that anything less than that is going to be seen as a failure, and he is certainly going to fail. This is Marvin Harrison Jr.'s award. The only argument you can make in terms of the narrative stuff, and Marvin Harrison Jr. extremely hyped, everyone's eyes are going to be on him, is that Arizona is a small media market. That is the only advantage Malik Nabers has over Marvin Harrison Jr. Nothing talent-wise, nothing situation-wise, but he plays in the biggest media market in the NFL, and arguably Harrison plays in the smallest. To me, it's pretty clearly Harrison. If you want to throw Jaden Daniels in there, fine, but it's a record award a little bit too. I don't think the Commanders are going to win enough games to get Daniels in that conversation. And even if he does have a good statistical year, a 7-win team is not getting an Offensive Rookie of the Year at the quarterback position. It's not happening. Moving on.
I'm not going to get okay.
Moving on, a slightly less controversial award with lower stakes, in our opinion, the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And not many defensive players were drafted in the first round. It was an offensive-heavy year. This award has been pushed to the wayside. There are some good pass rushers. There are some chops in this class. There are some Dallas Turners. But to me, this is the only defensive award in the modern time which can be won by a non-edge player, which is why I'm going to pick Terrion Arnold to win the award. He is going to be the best cornerback on a drastically improved secondary in Detroit. Everybody knows how terrible the Lions were in pass defense in 2023. They're going to be much better. It's not just because of him. They have flipped over that unit entirely. They've got people healthy. They brought in free agents. It's going to be way better at stopping the pass, but Arnold is going to get the lion's share of the credit for that. He is physically gifted beyond any other quarterback besides maybe Quinyon Mitchell in this year's class. He is great in coverage, physical, can get up, jam you at the line, understands his zones. And the only knock you can put on him is the receivers he's going to have to cover, because it's going to be hard for him to win that award with Justin Jefferson coming at him twice a year, with DJ Moore coming at him twice a year. But conceivably, you can scheme up plays to give him some alleviation. Let Brian Branch tiptoe down and maybe help out a little bit. I think Arnold's going to have 4 or 5 interceptions, have very good coverage stats, and is going to win the award. Also, not a real strong pass rusher in this year's class. No one's going to put up the 7.5 sacks, which Will Anderson did, and the efficiency he did in the run game. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
I don't have anything negative to say about Terrion Arnold as far as how good of a player he's going to be in the NFL or how good he's going to be in his rookie season. I certainly think he's going to elevate the Lions defense and their pass defense, which was atrocious each of the last 2 to 3 seasons. What I will say though about a DB winning defensive rookie of the year is that is extremely hard. When you look at the last 10 defensive rookie of the years, only 3 of them have been cornerbacks, and they have been some of the best cornerback rookie seasons we have ever seen. So it takes an extraordinary season from a rookie quarterback in order to win the award. You have Marcus Peters 10 years ago when he had 8 interceptions. Marshawn Lattimore in a year where there was really no edge competition for the award winner. And then you have Sauce Gardner's incredible year 2 seasons ago when he looked like one of the 3 best corners in the league. So that is what it's going to take for Terrion Arnold to compete and win that award. And I think it's much more likely that it's one of the best pass rushers drafted in this year's draft. It's either going to be Dallas Turner, I think it's going to be Leatu Latu, or it's going to wind up being Jared Verse. And Jared Verse is my personal pick right now to win the award. He has big shoes to fill with Aaron Donald leaving, but they have an extremely talented young defensive line. He's 6'4", 250, dominated the ACC last year, and I think he's going to step into that role. He's going to have the narrative, I'm going to say that word again, of filling Aaron Donald's shoes, and I think it is much more realistic that he gets to anywhere from 7 to 10 sacks on a good Rams team that I think is going to make the playoffs, and he is going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year.
You picked the worst of the 4 pass rushers drafted in the first round to say he's going to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'd rather have Chop than him from a pass rushing standpoint, and that sack number is really what drives these conversations. I'm sure Verse is very good in the run. I know he is, but if we're just going to predict a pass rusher, I would have gone Latu, who's NFL ready, a tremendous athlete, but has the injury concerns. I would have gotten Chop, who I could see cracking double-digit sacks because you can't really afford to double-team him with the other edges the Dolphins have on their team. Dallas Turner, probably not. He's a developmental piece, and Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel are going to eat up into his edge reps a little bit, but I don't see it being Verse. I just don't. I think the other edges in his class are going to outproduce him. And the Rams defense is going to be terrible. Like, we don't need to pretend that Aaron Donald was not the only thing holding that together anymore. He's the reason they were in the playoffs last year. Now that he's gone, they're going to be a bottom 10, maybe even a bottom 5 defense in all of football. They've got a few pieces on their D-line. Everywhere else, putrid. Putrid.
That's a whole lot of hate coming from that side.
Why would I hate on the Rams? I got no beef with the Rams whatsoever. You're the one who should have some beef with the Rams, but I digress. Moving on to Comeback Player of the Year, and this award has been poisoned. It was corrupted the past 2 years. Geno Smith won it when he was not coming back from any major injuries, and Joe Flacco won it after stinking on the Jets, despite Damar Hamlin dying on the field, coming back to life, and then playing in NFL games. So this is no longer the Comeback Player of the Year award. This is the I stunk in the previous few seasons award, and now I played decent, so I get it. Having laid that out, my award winner for that is Sam Darnold, who has stunk at very high levels throughout his career, but admittedly has been in terrible situations like Geno Smith was a few years ago. On the Jets, awful coaching staff, awful line, awful weapons. On the Panthers, awful coaching staff, awful line, DJ Moore, and awful weapons. Now, in Minnesota, way better coach, solid tackle duo, great weapons, assuming they're healthy. I think we're going to see him throw for between 3.5 and 4,000 yards. Hopefully keep the boneheaded interceptions to a minimum, keep those under 15, and with that, win the award. Now you're going to say, oh, someone coming back from injury is going to win the award. I gave up hope that would ever happen again. My mindset of this award has been permanently altered due to the ineptitude of the voters. No award is more narrative-driven. I'll use that word this time, more narrative-driven than this one. And Darnold's got the narrative.
Well, I would agree with you, but I think there's a whole lot of players that are going to have a larger narrative pushed behind them. I think if Aaron Rodgers, if he makes the playoffs, there is no one that has a shot at winning the award because he is the most talked about man in the NFL outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes. So if he has a good season, no one else has a chance at winning the award, in my opinion.
Except voters absolutely hate Aaron Rodgers because of the last 2 years of insanity he's been putting out.
With that being said, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good enough season to be the Comeback Player of the Year. And you mentioned that, oh, it's just did you suck? But I think it's more of the storyline that the media decides to pick up, because when Alex Smith had that horrific injury, he came back. That only happened a few seasons ago, and he won the award. Just a few years ago, Joe Burrow was the #1 overall pick, tore his ACL, then the next year came back and had a great season. So it's kind of whichever storyline the media picks up and decides to push more is what wins this award. It isn't necessarily who had the worst injury and then put up the best stats, as you already stated. And I understand that Sam Darnold has a narrative that he can create for himself. Has been atrocious as a starting quarterback the entirety of his career, gets inserted in the Kevin O'Connell offense, and potentially leads them to a wild card spot. So I can see that happening. I don't think it will happen. And someone that I think even has a better narrative is Kirk Cousins heading to the Atlanta Falcons. He's coming off an Achilles tear just like Aaron Rodgers has. The Falcons have really never been able to find a quality starting quarterback. They have a very good team. I think the win total is going to be there because they are playing in the AFC South, and we both agree we think the Falcons are the best team in the AFC South. So as long as he comes off of that Achilles injury healthy and he's getting the ball out to Drake London, Bijan Robinson is doing his thing, I think we are going to see a big push for Kirk Cousins to win this award because I think he's going to have a great year and the Falcons are going to win the division.
The problem with that is I think the Falcons are going to be a run-first team. I'll get into that later on with my Offensive Player of the Year predictions. And if we're going to give it to a player who did get hurt and came back, I think the Bengals are going to throw the ball about 5,000 times this year, and each one of those attempts is going to be chucked by Joe Burrow, assuming he can stay on the field. He's one of my MVP candidates. I think if we're calling someone who's going to come back from an injury winner, granted, I don't know if he can win the award twice. That may be a knock against him. But in terms of guys who have been injured, come back and produce the high level, I think Burrow's the most likely to do that. Herbert, I don't think is going to do that in the first year of the Harbaugh offense. Rodgers, I think, is universally hated by the media types after the past 2 years. And Kirk, yeah, it's Kirk Cousins. Nobody likes voting for Kirk Cousins.
Herbert could also build a narrative for himself too, just because the Chargers were they had the 5th overall pick last year. They did not produce. I think most people kind of view the weapons they have available to him on that offense as lesser than what he's had the entirety of his career in LA. So if under Jim Harbaugh, we think he takes the next step and wins 9 or 10 games, I think that's also certainly another option to win the award.
It ain't happening, I'll tell you that much. But since you brought up Jim Harbaugh, let's talk about the Coach of the Year right now. And I think Harbaugh's a strong candidate. I don't think he's going to win it because the Coach of the Year voting is very diplomatic. I think the real winner is going to be Dan Campbell. And if we're being honest with ourselves, Dan Campbell should have won this award last year, and arguably, he should have won it the year before. No man is more responsible for the Detroit Lions' cultural and on-field shift than Dan Campbell. You can cry as much as you want about, oh, Ben Johnson's made him, he's the real brains of the operation. Every single player on that Lions roster would run through a brick wall, stick their head in a bucket of motor oil, throw themselves into the most hostile of environments for Dan Campbell. No other coach in the NFL has that type of impact on their players. He is what Nick Sirianni wishes he was. He is the ultimate motivator. And when the Lions win 13 to 14 games, when they are one of the best teams in the NFC, I think we see Dan Campbell awarded with Coach of the Year. In order for him not to win, the Lions have to stay the same or regress, and that simply is not happening with how much better they've gotten defensively this offseason.
Well, I think the Coach of the Year is a harder one to predict from the perspective that there are some things that can take place during a season that a coach has to deal with and navigate and still push through and win games that affect how the final standings will wind up. Sometimes a lot of those storylines aren't created or coaches don't go above and beyond overcoming obstacles to win more games, and those type of candidates aren't exactly in the running, and then it winds up going to a coach who wins the most games like we think the Lions are going to do in the AFC and dominate. I could see that certainly happening if there's not some other candidates. Or it could happen with Brian Dable and the Giants where they gave him the award because he made it to the playoffs and overachieved with Daniel Jones throwing 15 touchdowns. Like, wow, you made it to the playoffs with Daniel Jones. Great job. Right now, Matt Eberflus is leading in the betting odds. I don't really see him winning the award just because I think a lot more of the talk, if the Bears are that good, is going to surround Caleb Williams rather than the coaching job he's doing. And I think a few other candidates that could potentially win it, if the Panthers take another step and Bryce Young's career looks to be saved, I think Dave Canales could throw his hat in the ring. I think Raheem Morris with the Falcons, with how good their win total could be this season, turning around what was a disaster under Arthur Smith, that's also certainly another option. But the one I think is most likely is who you mentioned at the beginning. I think Jim Harbaugh, from my perspective, at least seems to be very liked by members of the NFL media. And going to Los Angeles, a team that was ruined by Staley, the on-the-field product, I think, is going to be significantly better than what we saw from a defensive perspective, too. They never had a good defense. And also, as I already mentioned, I think people feel like they don't have as good of weapons on offense. So if the offense is very good under Jim Harbaugh and they get to 9 or 10 wins and get to the wild card, I think that's an award he's going to win.
What you're wrong about Eberflus on, and he'd be my third pick to win that, is the fact that if the Bears win 11 games, it's not because Caleb Williams came in and was the next coming of Mahomes. Because if he is that good, if he is a 4,000-yard passer and they win 11 games, he legitimately might get fired. Eberflus might lose his job. The Bears' strength right now is their defense. They have a very good defense. You look at how phenomenal they were after they traded for Sweat in the back half of 2023. They were shutting teams down. Admittedly, it is not hard to shut down a Josh Dobbs-led Minnesota Vikings offense or Jared Goff outside in the cold, but that defense is the strength of that team. So I think we see, paired with what I think Caleb Williams is going to do, below expectations, still good, but below expectations, with the 11 or so games the Bears could win if that defense shows up and locks in, I could definitely see Eberflus winning. I don't think Caleb Williams would be the narrative. As for Harbaugh, I think you need to be a playoff team, or at the very least a double-digit win team to get Coach of the Year in the modern times. And I don't see Harbaugh getting that milestone in his first year.
Brian Dable won the award winning 9 games.
Yeah, he won the 9 games, made the playoffs, won a playoff game though. I don't think Harbaugh is going to get that luxury, particularly in the AFC. He is not making the playoffs in the AFC in all likelihood. It will be a vastly more difficult battle than Dable had to go through.
I think they're going to be better than the Broncos, and I think they're going to be better than
Mr. Raiders rider. You're not going to go and say, I think they're going to be better than the Raiders. After the last successful TikTok we've made in the past month was you glazing the Raiders vigorously. Sit over there and think about your words. We're going to get into some of the things you've said in the past later on in this video. Moving on to Offensive Player of the Year. There are a lot of strong candidates this season, but many of them have flaws. The two of which who don't have flaws for me are Bijan Robinson and Justin Jefferson. And starting off with Bijan, the Falcons are going to be a run-first team. There's no two ways about it. They have a great interior offensive line, the best guard duo in the NFL with Chris Lindstrom and Matthew Bergeron leading the way on pulls or chipping people out on zone plays. Phenomenal at blocking up front. They've got a quarterback who is old, coming off a major Achilles injury, who's going to need time to get readjusted to an NFL offense he has never played in before. And you are going to see a drastic increase in red zone touches and touches in general because a certain incompetent coach no longer works for the organization. So Bijan's going for 1,500 on the ground. I could see him putting up 300, 400, 500 through the air. Whole lot more touchdowns than last season. I think that could, I am sure if he does that, he will win the award. The only other candidate I see being a legitimate threat is Justin Jefferson because the Vikings offense is this close. They are one injury away from devolving into chucking it to Jefferson 20 times a game and letting him do what he does. And with that type of volume on targets, even if it is a substandard quarterback throwing him the ball, he is going to put up an insane statistical season. You look at CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase, those guys are both holding out. Saquon Barkley, I don't think is going to get the usage in Philadelphia because they're going to try and preserve him for the playoffs unless things get really bad up there. CMC, I kind of feel like he is going to see the same thing Saquon has in terms of a smaller usage rate, particularly since that Ayuk extension sounds like it's going to be pretty close. And of course, there's a health risk with him. And Tyreek Hill, I think, is just getting older and less relevant. I don't think he's going to have the same season he did last year. And even if he does have a 1,600-yard, 12-touchdown year, voters are not going to give him the award when he statistically regresses. So that's why I got Bijan and JJ winning it.
Well, I think the obvious answer and leaders in the betting odds right now are Christian McCaffrey to repeat with the 49ers as he's been spectacular in the 49ers offense. Or you have CeeDee Lamb, who's really the only viable weapon in the Cowboys offense. Maybe you think Tyreek Hill is going to go for 2,000 yards again on the Dolphins.
Again.
Be the first receiver, to reach 2,000 yards. I know he got close towards the end of last season to making that a reality, but he wound up not getting there. I don't think either of those are going to happen. As you mentioned, CeeDee Lamb's holdout. Not a lot of talent around him. Maybe it regresses what you think is going to happen with Justin Jefferson to just throwing him the ball every single play. And I just do not think that Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, some of the other top receivers that might be contending for the award are going to quite have the statistical production of a Saquon Barkley, who I think is going to dominate this year behind the best offensive line he's ever played behind in his entire career. And you mentioned you think the usage rate isn't really going to be there. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to use him a ton. When you look at what went wrong with the Eagles last year, they had Jalen Hurts, who kind of broke down as the year went on, did not look like quite the elite athlete that he was at the beginning of the season.
If I may interject, he had some injuries going into the year too. Like, let's not pretend he did not have a knee issue for the first few weeks of the season.
It certainly did not get better throughout the course of the year, tush pushing 100 times, taking those goal line carries, having his offensive line and the defensive line being on top of him several times a game. So I think they're going to look to limit the usage of Jalen Hurts in short yardage situations, and some of those carries are going to go to Saquon Barkley. You look at Jalen Hurts, had 15 total rushing touchdowns last year. A lot of those came in short yardage situations. You just give maybe 5 of those to Saquon Barkley, and then you take a look at what the running back room in Philadelphia has done over the previous 2 seasons, averaging 14 touchdowns on average, and you look at what DeAndre Swift did last year, what Miles Sanders did the year prior. Miles Sanders 2 years ago averaged 4.9 yards a carry. DeAndre Swift last year, 4.6. We both know Saquon Barkley is a superior running back to them, so I think he's going to average well over 5 yards a carry. I think he's underrated out of the backfield as a receiving threat, and I think we're going to see him get close to 20 total touchdowns, around 1,300 to 1,400 yards rushing, and I think he's going to have around 400 to 500 yards passing.
First off, no one underrates Saquon Barkley as a receiving back. We know how good he is out of the backfield. Second off, you're right and you're wrong in the tush push. They're not going to slam Jalen Hurts up the middle on a 3rd and 1 in the second quarter anymore. That's not going to happen. But when you are down near the goal line, I don't think they're going to withhold use of that play, the guaranteed touchdown. Maybe you think they stick Saquon Barkley into that system and use him to tush push. That'd be a unique thing. That'd pad his stats. But down near the goal line, no, they're definitely still tush pushing with Jalen Hurts. They're not going to sacrifice touchdowns for the sake of his health when they can limit the production or limit the carries in other ways. Maybe you give Saquon Barkley those 3rd and short carries around midfield on the 40-yard line, but he's not getting more touchdowns because Jalen Hurts doesn't tush push. They're still tush pushing into the end zone. And the Eagles running back room, it's not good, but it's deep. They've got enough other people in that room, in that building, where they can take some of the touches off Saquon Barkley. And the Eagles are operating under the idea they are going to make a deep playoff run. They think last year was a fluke. They think last year should not have gone the way it did, and they were poorly coached and poorly game planned. Had terrible injury luck. To limit that injury luck and to hopefully pair the coaching with the players in the playoffs, I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to get the amount of carries he needs to hit that 1,500 yard milestone. I just don't see it happening. He's going to be more effective than he ever has been, except maybe outside of his rookie year. More efficient, sure, but the volume is not going to be there.
They did not pay Saquon Barkley to be one of the 5 highest paid running backs in the NFL just to limit their usage of him, to preserve him for the playoffs. They paid him in order to make him an essential piece of their offense. So
hey, why'd the Ravens pay Derrick Henry out of curiosity?
To have a better running back situation.
And where
and
do
more reliable running back situation.
And you think they're going to just throw him out there in the regular season to carry the ball 250 times? I'll save you the trouble of thinking of that answer. You've already said in previous videos you do not think Derrick Henry is going to get the same usage you did in Tennessee in Baltimore.
Well, that's because
why do you think it's different for Saquon?
That's different with the Ravens because the Ravens have Lamar Jackson, who's
and the Eagles have Jalen Hurts. He's the second best running quarterback, maybe the 3rd best in the entirety of the NFL.
Well, I would take Josh Allen over him, and from a purely rushing perspective, I'd probably take Justin Fields over him too.
Yeah, from a purely rushing perspective, you take Justin Fields over him. All right, man. He is not as bad he is a much better rusher than Justin Fields.
That's
first
not
and
true.
Foremost. It absolutely is true.
Justin Fields
is returning kicks. The 1,000-yard milestone is a nice, shiny 4-digit number, which gets idiots like you fantasizing about what he could be. What he could be is an XFL legend. Get that man in the Indoor Football League ASAP and watch him change his career. I don't think Saquon's getting the volume. Moving on to Defensive Player of the Year, where I'm sure we have different opinions. To me, it's Micah Parsons. It's a Micah Parsons who looks bigger than he did this time last season, who was the best pass rusher in all of football by most metrics in 2023, who is on a defense which is improved in stopping the run and is going to be able to cover his weakness a little bit better, and who is now playing in a contract year. I wouldn't be shocked if Micah put up 17, 18, 19 sacks and was able to pair that with a much more impressive resume as a run defender in 2024. Pair that with the star on the side of his helmet, and I don't see it being much of a race. I think this one's done by week 14, week 15 at the latest. Parsons has it locked up and is the defensive player of the year. He is not going to need to play the final month of the season to win this award.
I don't hate the Micah Parsons pick to win the award, but I don't think that's going to wind up winning it. I think this might be a long shot for some people. Aiden Hutchinson is going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. And I mentioned him in our Top 5 Edge video. What we saw from him last season, we saw him take a step from his rookie year, got to 11.5 sacks, led the NFL in quarterback knockdowns, quarterback hurries, quarterback pressures. But the reason he didn't convert some of those to sacks was because his secondary was horrible. And your Defensive Rookie of the Year pick is Terrion Arnold, who's playing for his team. So when you have a better secondary behind you, you're going to be able to still generate the pass rush you were last year. There's going to be more sack opportunities. I think we're going to see his 11.5 sacks jump closer to 16.5 to 18.5. He's going to have better numbers along those lines. The pressure numbers are going to remain the same. There's also been some talent added across the defensive line, which will make it harder to double team Aiden Hutchinson. And we've also seen him be very good in the run. So I think things are lining up perfectly for him to win the award, and I think the Lions are going to have the win total in order to back that part of it up, because the defense is also going to be significantly better. And just to some of the other names we haven't mentioned.
We don't need to go through the laundry list. We know Myles Garrett's going to be a candidate. We know Chris Jones is going to be a candidate.
Well,
those are the obvious two ones. Maybe you want to stick Watt in there. You know my opinions about Watt.
Well, something about Myles Garrett that I think is going to be hard for him to win the award. When you look at the history of the award, only 3 players have won Defensive Player of the Year back-to-back. That's J.J. Watt, Lawrence Taylor, and Aaron Donald. So for him to do that, he would be kind of ingrained in history as now one of the 4 guys to go back-to-back with the award. So I think it's going to be difficult for him to win it from maybe a voter fatigue standpoint and also just a historical perspective standpoint. I think Max Crosby has a chance if he goes absolutely stupid on what people think is going to be, most people think is going to be a bad Raiders team. And TJ Watt, has a chance. I think Micah Parsons and Aiden Hutchinson are going to have a better narrative behind them.
Here's what's going to happen. TJ Watt is going to get 24 of the least impactful sacks imaginable. Like, up 30, times running down. Here comes TJ Watt screaming off the edge. Ah! Sacks Deshaun Watson. Everyone claps. J.J. Watt is sending out about 5,000 tweets about it, and that is what flips the narrative. He was robbed last year. I don't hate the Hutch pick. I think Micah Parsons has a bit of an advantage, which Hutchinson simply won't have due to the star on the side of his helmet. That will drum up some interest in the award. If I had to pick 3 players, it'd be Hutch, it'd be Parsons, and it'd be Garrett. A solid pick for sure, a solid pick. A surprisingly inept analysis from the co-host. On to the big one, the MVP. No award is more narrative-driven. No award is indicative of a team and a player's success than this one. And there are many, many good candidates. Plenty of top-tier quarterbacks. Maybe you think Jefferson or Christian McCaffrey or Myles Garrett or some defensive player sneaks in the running. But let's be real with ourselves. It's coming down to 2 people this season. Those 2 people are going to be Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And I'll start with Joe Burrow's case first because I think he's not going to win it. Burrow is on a team which got worse in the running game. They lost Joe Mixon. They replaced him with Zach Moss. That's a downgrade. The interior of their offensive line still stinks. But they've now got the duo of Trent Brown and Orlando Brown at tackle. They've got Mims to back them up if one of them goes down, although he's a bit of a developmental piece. Assuming Jamar Chase shows up week 1, they're going to pass the ball a whole lot. If I had to pick a quarterback to throw for 5,000 yards in 2024, it would be Joe Burrow. This is going to be an air raid offense. I don't care if they play outdoors in Ohio in the winter. They're going to throw it a ton. And due to that statistical production, the 40-plus touchdowns, the around 5,000 passing yards from Joe Burrow, I think he's going to be a strong candidate. But I think playing in the AFC North is going to knock that win total down enough and hurt him just a little bit and keep him out of the race. Which leaves us with Josh Allen. And look, No one thinks the Bills are going to do anything. Maybe you think they're going to be a playoff team. Maybe you think they're going to be 10 wins. Josh Allen is this team's offense. He's getting close to being this team's defense with how many injuries they have. They might have to stick him out there at outside linebacker at some point this year. But if he's able to produce like he produced last year, with Khalil Shakir, with Keon Coleman, with Curtis Samuels now dealing with something, with Dalton Kincaid, throw for 4,200 yards, contribute another 600 on the ground, highly efficient in the red zone, score touchdowns on the ground without tush pushing. If he's able to do that, or even elevate that slightly, get up to 4,500 passing yards, get up to 700 rushing yards, play complementary football with this defense, put as little strain on them as possible while they try and get healthy, with a depleted receiving room, he's going to run away with this award. It's going to be a landslide. And he's going to win 12 plus games doing it. The win total is very important. I'll get into that after Tristan gives his little thought process on Josh Allen, or whoever he has as his pick. But to me, it's Josh Allen. Maybe you think Joe Burrow's close, but he's due. Allen is due.
Well, you mentioned that the award is largely narrative driven, and when it comes to some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL and in the AFC, I don't think the narrative is going to be there for a guy like Lamar Jackson, who disappointed in the playoffs last year, and there's going to be some voter fatigue when it comes to him because I think they want to see him get it done in the playoffs before they give him another MVP award.
He's never winning another MVP award until he at least makes a Super Bowl. I think he's going to have to win one before he gets another award, but it's just not happening.
I totally agree. And then when it comes to Patrick Mahomes, I think another one. I think voters are tired of seeing him succeeding. There's going to be the narrative of can they win another Super Bowl, make it 3 in a row. I think that's going to be a larger talking point when it comes to him. He has what has been talked about as a much better receiving room supporting him. And as you just mentioned, Josh Allen, that's going to be a larger narrative of can Josh Allen uplift this younger receiver room that is relatively unproven, win the division, make a run in the playoffs. That is going to be more talked about and boost up his status as being an MVP candidate than Patrick Mahomes having a better receiver room, which should make it easier for him to push the ball down the field. So specifically with Josh Allen, it has been a drawback and takeaway from the votes that people say he should get for the MVP award because Stephon Diggs has been on the team. Now he is elsewhere. The narrative of, oh, Josh Allen is only good once Stephon Diggs arrived. We can't push that anymore, or we weren't pushing it, but people can't push that anymore. And I think he's going to get the ball out to Isaiah McKenzie. He's going to get the ball out to Keon Coleman. He's 2 solid tight ends. He's James Cook, who emerged as one of the better dual threat running backs in the NFL last year. And I don't think anyone can really challenge them for the AFC East title. The Patriots look like they might win 2 games this year. I don't think the Jets are going to be any good. I think they'll win 6 or 7 games. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to be a playoff team. So I think
2 podcast clips about Brian Flores don't really move you that much.
Not exactly as far as the Dolphins' win total goes, but I think the Bills will win the division. I think the narratives is there for as long as Josh Allen produces on the field for him to build the perfect MVP campaign.
You, my friend, are intellectually inconsistent. And we are going to flash back to the year of our Lord, 2024, specifically about 3 weeks ago when we were doing record predictions. You said the Buffalo Bills were going to go 10-7 in that video. When is the last time, I'll ask you this question, I already know the answer, a quarterback has won 10 games and won the MVP award in the 16-game era?
I have no idea.
It's never happened. The closest you get is John Elway, who went 10-4-1 in a strike-shortened 15-game season. Since they've started playing 16 games, no quarterback with less than 11 wins has ever won the award. Specifically, in recent years, the win total of quarterbacks has ratcheted up and up and up. You've also glazed Patrick Mahomes to no end. You have talked about how great their receiving rooms, how great Hollywood Brown, how great Isaiah, how great Xavier Worthy is going to be. And now the NFL is not going to suspend Rasheed Rice.
This is getting cut out.
I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep talking.
Completely, I just negated because I talked about how the receiver room does not boost his MVP case narrative.
Incorrect. It absolutely boosts his MVP case narrative. He had 4,000 passing yards last year and was not a strong MVP candidate. He will have the opportunity this year to throw for 5,000 passing yards with Rasheed Rice, with Xavier Worthy, with Hollywood Brown. They're going to be in a setting to throw the ball a ton. You predicted them to win 12 games. You've said everything great about the Kansas City Chiefs offseason. Oh, going for his 3rd Super Bowl will hurt his MVP chances. What world are you living in where the narrative of, oh, this guy's trying to three-peat hurts his chances of winning MVP. If anything, that boosts them even further. You are intellectually inconsistent. You have picked Patrick Mahomes with every single one of your takes leading up to this moment, but now are balking at the idea of standing on business and standing with Patrick Mahomes, so you're flipping over to Josh Allen.
No.
What is changing? Are the Bills winning more than 10 games? Is Josh Allen going to have a 5,000-yard passing season, 1,000 yards on the ground? Is Mahomes only going to throw for 4,000 yards with this supposedly boosted receiving room? What has changed to make you pick Josh Allen? To try and pull the rug out from under me and the MVP I have been riding with for the entirety of his career. What happened?
You're just yelling into the ether at this point. Everything
No
you just said
counter-argument.
with the Chiefs, I already addressed in my initial point talking about where I don't think the narrative is going to be there. You have a better receiver room. You're referencing win totals made 3-4 weeks ago as a gotcha moment. And then you say no quarterback has ever won the MVP with less than 11 wins. But 3-4 weeks ago, I predicted them to win 10 wins. What has happened since 3 weeks ago, since you're using that as a gotcha? I am even less confident in the Jets to win. I think I predicted them to have 7 wins, 8 wins at the time. I don't exactly remember. I'm less confident in the Jets. I'm not super confident in the Dolphins. I think the Patriots are going to be even worse than I predicted them to be.
Oh, you totally predicted the Patriots to beat the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure that was a diligent part of your record, and you did.
I don't remember my exact win total, but I think it is going to be incredibly easy for the Bills to win the division, whether that's 10, 11, 12 wins. It is not going to matter. And when it comes to
You want to talk about what's happened in the past 3 weeks. Matt Milano is going to miss the first month plus of the season with a torn bicep. If anything, that is hurting Buffalo even more on the win total front. That would knock your 10 wins down to 9. How does that help Josh Allen having his team win less games?
If he continues and the Bills are still as good with Matt Milano on the field, that only helps Josh Allen's narrative, which has also changed in recent weeks, because I still think the Bills are the best team in the AFC East. And you keep harping on the receiver, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. They're going to have a great season.
You're the one who's harped on all offseason.
Hollywood Brown is now injured. He's starting I don't think he's going to start the first few games of the year. And I've said the receivers are good. That has nothing to do, and I've said they're better. That has nothing to do with Patrick Mahomes' MVP
that
case.
That has everything to do. He's not throwing it to nobody. He's catching the ball for him. You can't say, well, the receiving room's going to be better, but that somehow hurts his MVP case when his MVP case fell flat last year because of a lack of statistical production. You are being intellectually inconsistent,
you are
and
being
I don't
completely
understand
intellectual.
why.
If we're going to throw around these buzzwords to try and insult me, you're
it's
being
not insult, it's a fact.
Intellectually dishonest if you think, when have I ever stated that Patrick Mahomes is going to be an MVP
You have said
this year?
everything throughout the entire offseason. You have praised the Chiefs. You have praised the Chiefs receivers. You've praised Patrick Mahomes. You've talked about the 3-peat, and somehow a 3-peat narrative hurts him. Somehow a better receiving room, which he is going to produce more with, hurts him. This makes no sense. You have used the word narrative far too many times, only to not know what the word narrative means.
You clearly don't know what the word narrative means, because I don't think his narrative is as good as Josh Allen's narrative. I can think the Chiefs are going to be a 12-win team. I think they're easily going to win the AFC West. I can think they're easily going to be in the AFC Conference Championship again. I can think their receiver room is better than it was last year. I think all of those things are true. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen's MVP case narrative in the wider, broad spectrum of the media is significantly better than Patrick Mahomes' because Stephon Diggs has left. They lost in the playoffs again last year. They're in the AFC East, which I don't think is a great division, so they're going to have the division win in there. I think they're going to be anywhere from the 3 to the 1 seed at the end of the day, depending on...
You think a 10-7 teams being the 1 seed?
If you think my predictions 3 weeks ago, what the Bills are actually going to wind up with, that is a totally different... If you're going to keep harping on the point, I don't even know what to tell you.
If I'm going to hold you accountable to the prediction you made, by the way, Curtis Samuel also injured, probably missing the start of the year. Matt Milano injured. So, if anything, things which have made the Bills worse. You either have no knowledge of the history of this award, and you think a 10-win quarterback is going to somehow pluck his way into winning the award, or you are recanting your Bills prediction. Which, hey, if you want to recant the Bills prediction, if you want to come over to this side of the table and say the Bills are winning 12, 13 games, by all means, you're welcome over here. But we need to address this. Is that changing, or are the Bills winning 10 games and Josh Allen's winning the MVP?
You are completely ignoring how significant of a narrative I think it is going to be with Stephon Diggs being elsewhere, Isaiah McKenzie being the Bills' #1 receiver.
Isaiah McKenzie is not the Bills' #1 receiver. Khalil Shakir is the Bills' #1 receiver. What are you talking about?
Sorry, Khalil Shakir. My apologies. That is a misspeak on my part. With Khalil Shakir being the Bills' #1 receiver and Keon Coleman being a rookie receiver entering the field, people don't think the Bills are going to be that good. And it is going to be widely talked about with Stephon Diggs' antics on the Texans, how significant the narrative has been over the previous few seasons, saying Stephon Diggs made Josh Allen. That has been talked about a lot. And now that he has exited the building, a player that has received 160 targets each of the last 3 to 4 years is not playing for you anymore. And you're replacing him with Khalil Shakir, a rookie wide receiver that was drafted in the 2nd round, and 2 solid tight ends. I mean, they don't have bad offensive pieces, but it is now clearly Josh Allen is by far and away the biggest name on that team. And there's no one close to him. There's not a Travis Kelce on his team.
Yeah, that's why I've been banging the drum. He's going to be the MVP all offseason.
And what prevents me from thinking his narrative is better than Patrick Mahomes' narrative?
If you think the narrative you have laid out for the past 6 months for Patrick Mahomes,
I haven't laid out a narrative for the past 6 months for him to be the MVP.
Three-peat. Mahomes being in a better situation than he was last year. How is that not an MVP narrative? Because you didn't say the magic 3 letters?
No, I have been arguing for the Chiefs to be very good and have a very good chance at three-peating. I haven't been saying that Patrick Mahomes has the best MVP case narrative. I've been saying the Chiefs are going to be really good again. They're probably going to be in the AFC Championship again.
If you think the Chiefs are going to be really good again, you think Patrick Mahomes has an MVP case. There is no world in which the Chiefs win 12 to 13 games and he is not the MVP.
Does he have an MVP case? Do I think he'll be top 5 in the voting? Yes, but that doesn't mean I think before the season even starts, he's going to be my #1 MVP favorite, or I think he is the best MVP case or narrative. It's not like just because I'm picking Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes, I don't think Patrick Mahomes has any chance. I just think Josh Allen's narrative is better than Patrick Mahomes' narrative.
And I think the narrative you have set up this offseason has been flip-flopped in the 11th hour. That's okay. We can both be right about this one. You can be right for the wrong reasons. I can be right for the right reasons. Josh Allen is winning MVP. Don't you enjoy that we just had a 10-minute argument over a topic we agree on? Isn't that part of the Thicc brand?
I'm sweating.
I'm sweating. Well, great. Those were our award predictions. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Are we woefully mistaken in saying TJ Watt's got no shot of winning the award? Is someone we're not giving any credit like Drake May going to sneak up on us and win the Offensive Rookie of the Year? Let us know in the comments. If you're still here, please like, share, subscribe. We appreciate your support, and we will see you in the next video.
Use code Thicc on Underdog Fantasy. Get bonus cash up to $500 if you want to participate in their multi-millionaire Best Ball Mania contest. They also have a few contests for best ball with smaller prizes but also smaller entry fees. See you guys in the next one.